So you got your worn out old factory under bonnet lining or your under hood lining. Now this is out of a 1990 model vehicle. So you can see what's happened here is the material face has given away from the composite and it's actually shrinking and sort of stretched out and bubbled away. It's in an area here where it's about to disintegrate and let go and then everything's going to fall out. Now this particular one's off an iconic car, a R33 GTR Skyline. Now the customer or the owner, shall I say, he wants to retain as much factory look as he can. Difficult to go to the dealer to buy one. Whatever sort of car you have, even when you go to the dealer to replace this, you're probably going to fall over at what the price is and you go, what options are there out? Okay, I can remove this totally out of the car and do a peel and stick. Then you got the trouble of the edges. To retain that factory look, we're going to show you how you can reinstate or restore this to create a solid base that we can apply something to it and get something as close to original as we can. So the fibrous top on this, you can't stick anything to it. Being fibrous, you'll try and stick tape to this, it'll just fluff off. What we're going to do here is we're going to coat it with a polyester resin, which is going to bleed into it. It's going to seal into it and create a solid or sealed surface that we can put a peel and stick material direct to the surface. You can see over here I've actually cut away and relieved the tension on where that, I guess, fibrous material has come unstuck. Reason I'm doing that is if we don't do it in a couple of these areas you can see over here where it's bridging, it's not going to have a structural face. We can put some chop strand mat, so we've got just some fiberglass chop strand mat here that we can patch repair a couple of areas if we're concerned that structurally it's not there. Otherwise, if we just pour resin into this, two things could happen. One, it could stretch enough and the resin could bleed down and stick to the base material, or it's only a very light layer. We're at risk of, we could put the resin on, if you press too hard you could crack it. So we've got the option to put some glass, feather out some glass areas to give it some structure. So we've got that there if we need it. We're not sure if we're going to use it yet, but I'm going to go ahead and cut anywhere where it's bridged, like this area here. I'm just going to cut the material and let it relax. We'll see what it does. So we've gone ahead and we've cut and relieved these surfaces here. Now, being a bodywork guy, I'm conscious of surface, and I've looked at these, just tried to determine, I guess, what's happening there. Am I upsetting the surface? Has underneath been distorted that we're going to have lumps and bumps in it? Now, this is not, I guess, an exterior surface of the car that we need to worry about, but it's something to be mindful of, that we're not going to put lumps and bumps in it, and it's still got a decent, plane on it. The other thing that you want to be mindful of is, ideally, if you've got the bonnet or the hood off the car, you can set this in its exact position it is, so you're not going to build any tension in it. We don't have that opportunity, so what I've got is a couple of packers here, and areas that I know that this has got a curve in it, I'm trying to keep it in its original form, or close enough to. This is still going to have plenty of flexibility. It's not going to become something rigid, but we don't want to put a twist into it and then you're fighting clips in that sense. So I've got a bit of timber under here just to keep that curve in it, that it's sort of sitting natural as it would be in the car. Now I'm happy with relieving what I've done there. Give that another cut through there. And now I'm going to determine, there's a couple of lows here, which I might just put some offcuts of glass strand in there to sort of pack that up. But as I brush it on, I'm going to determine what's going to happen there. So we've got, as I said, a polyester resin. Now we're not using an epoxy. Epoxies do soften in temperature. I mean, your engine bay may only be low hundreds. Maybe if he's got a turbo, you'll notice this area isn't covered in this particular vehicle. It may have a lot of heat there that they'd run a heat shielding, but typically it's not exposed to, 120 is quite hot when you think about it. You think of boiling water at 100 degrees, you burn yourself pretty quick. That it's not extreme temperatures that we're fighting against. Vinyl ester resin, so you can just get this from your hardware or your local, if you've got a composite supplier, go there. We're going to mix this up. All we're going to do is brush it on, wet out some areas and put some chop strand in, brush that in, let this seal, let it dry overnight. We'll basically de-nib it is the next stage to knock off any highs, and then we've got a solid foundation that we're going to upholster this and then raw edge it. We'll have that and we'll put that straight back in the car. So we've got our polyester resin mixed up here, and we've probably got, I don't know, depending on your temperature, 30 to 45 minutes sort of gel time on what we've mixed up here. I've got a disposable brush. We're not going to bother cleaning this out. You just need to be mindful, you know, you're dealing with hazardous or dangerous goods here, that you can't just put this in a bin unless it's totally cured, then it goes into general waste. Otherwise it's prescribed waste. So don't go pouring it down the gutter, giving it to the dolphins. So we coated this up with resin. Now there's only just a couple of patches. I want to be mindful. I don't want to put too much glass on it because it's going to make it rigid in those areas. So there's just a couple of little bits here that are my concerns. I'm just going to brush in a bit of chopped strand mat just to soak in and make sure that's solid. So with a bit of gloss on it too, you can notice any surface that you're concerned about. You've got the ability now just to relieve cut those, just to get that material to sit where it should be. So we're pretty happy with this. I'm gonna let this flash overnight. We'll come back tomorrow, it'll be sealed, and we'll go from there. So we'll let that cure overnight. Now there's a couple of little knobs and burrs on here. I've just got some 180 grit paper. We're just gonna knock those back. So we quickly de-nibbed it or knocked off any of those highs. Now there's still a little bit of dust here. You could get an air gun and blow this off. I've just got some aerosol wax and grease remover. I'm just going to make sure all the dust is gone before we stick it onto the self-adhesive. If you think about it, the dust, we try and stick even masking tape to the dust. The dust is going to stick to the adhesive and then you're just going to pull everything off. So it's vital that this is clean. So you can see we've got a nice sealed surface, and a good way to test it is get a bit of masking tape, stick it to it. It being a self-adhesive material will stick to this now that it's sealed. We got our premium underbonnet here, which is a self-adhesive product. You can see it's 100% black. Now this is nice and oversized for our sheet here. Now what I'm going to do is just flip this over. I've got a white texture here. We're just going to trace this. I'm going to leave it oversized, but we're going to trace it because we're going to have to get it out of this way. I want a bit of extra because it's going to shorten up as we roll through all the valleys. So I'm going to rough cut it for now. So we've got our sheet here, cut the size. Now it's nice and oversized. What I'm actually going to do is get yourself a packet of blades. You'll go through them, trust me. I'm just going to cut just through this plastic and reveal half of it so I can tack it down, work down one side, come back and work down the other. Now to give you an idea on how sticky this stuff is, if I press down on my finger, it doesn't want to come off. It's designed to stick and it does that pretty good. So I've just lightly cut through the plastic. Now a tip for you with this plastic, this side's silicone coated, can go back and come off. This side's not. If I touch that side on there, it's stuck down for good. So even if you want to be a bit creative and go like that, you'll know that's the side that's drawn on, or if you write top, that's the non-sticky side, or the side that's gonna stick and give you trouble. So it looks like I've got plenty of room there. Bit of overhang on both edges. You don't need to worry about air bubbles with this. It's not like a vinyl or anything. This is a pretty easy bonnet hood to do as far as the shape goes, that we can just contour around it. The only thing that's going to give me trouble is I'm going to stick past it and then I'm going to stick to the table. That's going to make life fun. But I'm just going to chase around, and reality is you'll use this dome area of one of these more to push it in. And the good thing is too, I'll show you here, once you've got the backing off this material, you'll get a bit of stretch out of it in all directions. So it means I can get around these lumps and bumps, you know, really well, to the point you'll feel like a motor trimmer without the years of pain or experience. So you can see here how much this has grown. It's fallen right into that valley there where we wanted it to get to, with 0 wrinkles. So we've been right around the perimeter, and you can see we used it, our hands and the butt of this roller and the wheel to push it and make sure it had gone into all those, I guess, concave areas, particularly up the front here. I'd even cut it a little bit to allow it to just get a bit more stretch in the material. You want to be mindful that if I was doing it blindly from the top side, I'll just crush all the back of this. So I was using, the fingers to feel, touch, and make sure it's definitely stuck down to the edge. So I'm happy where that is. Now, turn it over, we just have a quick look at it. Now you can see all the original sort of shapes, they're still there. Any of these areas you're still not 100% with. You can push in. A couple of these trim removal pry bars are quite good. They're not sharp, they've got a bit of a dome on them, but you can get right into these harder edges and just massage it around. Even this end with a nice curve on it. I'm quite happy now with this. Get a fresh blade. And I'm just going to cut around this profile just to make life a bit easier rather than that sticking to my hands. I've stuck that bit of waste material back on, and now you can see here, I've used the reverse side intentionally, but once it sticks, you don't want to peel it off. Now I've got something to hold, which also gives you the ability to use the scissors. What tends to happen with the scissors, as you can see there, is the adhesive gets on one side and then gunks up the blades. So if we clean them off, now that I've got that on there, we can come back around. You can see the difference in cutting this stuff. I can actually cut it again. So my other option is to attempt to cut it with the scissors, which is going to be a bit of a balance of both here. So now we've got it cut over. I've turned it over. You can see we've got a couple of ragged edges there. You can go around and just neaten those up. You don't have to be pedantic with this stuff because we're going to get the heat gun here. And I'll give you a demonstration. There's a little step you can see there. So as I'm working my way around with the heat gun, what I'm doing is I'm just rubbing over, smoothing over the edges. So those sort of melted fibers, I can push back into themselves, and I can also put a radius back on the top here. That'll just help if you've had any scissor cuts or drag lines where your knife's kind of chomp, 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 you've got the ability to smooth it out. So I'm going to keep chasing this around, and also that extra heat, anywhere where you're concerned your adhesive is lifted, you just give it a squash down at the same time. It means as it cools down, it's going to hold down there and stay, or stretch and relax that glue from its initial contact. We've gone around the perimeter, we're happy with it. You can see I put a glove on halfway through, it did get hot, thanks for noticing. Now, I'm going to melt over the top here, but any of these fibers are going to get caught in it. So you can see this couple of specks. So I've just got an air gun, we're just going to blow all that stuff off. So we've got that clean. Now, anywhere where you've over rubbed this or picked up a little bit of fiber, don't worry about it. Get your heat gun and just go in gentle. And you'll start to see these fibers melt down and put a nice skin on it. Now we've got that all melted down. It looks awesome actually. They only look this good when they come straight off the tool. And then you put them in your car and they look dirty. Now, we've got our holes here where our factory clips go through. What we're going to do, hang this over the edge. I'm going to put a soldering iron, we're going to melt those holes back through.